Sometimes a man reaches the end of his trail with nothing but grit, a hat he can't afford to replace, and a dog who won't quit on him. For Bill, that dog was a weather-scarred German shepherd named Roger. With more dust than dollars to his name, he traded what little he had for a boarded desert cabin, one lonely dollar for 4 crooked walls and a roof that sighed in the wind. When the door groaned open, Bill froze. An old dog lay inside, eyes cloudy but proud, as if it had been waiting on him all along. Under the soot and loose boards came the rest: a faded journal, a vanishing locket, a map that didn't know it was a map, and a key that felt heavier than its size, whispers of a girl named Eliza, and a debt the land itself hadn't forgotten. What began as shelter turned into a reckoning: truth, justice, maybe redemption. But would this discovery save Bill or bury him under the desert's oldest secret? Before we ride back in, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if this trail grabs you, make sure you're subscribed. Tomorrow I've got something special saddled and ready for you. The sun hung low in the western sky, a molten coin slipping behind the jagged peaks of the distant mountains. Dust swirled in lazy eddies around the hooves of Bill's weary horse, and the dry earth groaned beneath its weight. Bill adjusted his wide-brimmed hat, the brim casting a shadow that played across his rugged features, and glanced sideways at Roger, his faithful German shepherd. The dog's ears perked up, the taut muscles in his haunches poised for action, a reminder of his sharp instincts honed through many a trial under the wide, open sky. Together, they approached the remnants of an abandoned mining camp, a collection of rotting wood and rusty tools that stood like ghosts against the backdrop of the setting sun. Once a bustling hive of activity, it now lay silent, shrouded in a cloak of dust and desolation, as if the very earth had sighed and decided to forget the men who had scratched its surface for silver and gold. Bill could almost hear the echoes of laughter and the clinking of metal against metal that had once filled this hollow place. "Gosh, Roger," Bill muttered, his voice low and gravelly, "looks like we found ourselves a proper graveyard of dreams." He dismounted, boots crunching against the gravelly dirt as he stepped forward, eyes scanning the remnants of the old cabins. There was something about the stillness that set his teeth on edge, the kind of quiet that seemed to swallow sound, leaving only the thrum of his heartbeat in his ears. Roger sniffed the air, his nose twitching as he picked up the sense of rust and decay, mingled with something else, something elusive that made Bill's skin prickle. "You smell that?" Bill asked, though he wasn't expecting an answer. "Smells like trouble's brewing in this here old ghost town." But the first cabin, a haphazard structure with splintered boards and a roof sagging under the weight of years, beckoned to him. Bill pushed open the door with a creak that echoed into the stillness, a sound that seemed to ripple through the air like a whisper. The darkness inside felt thick, almost tangible, and he stepped in cautiously, Roger at his side, eyes alert and ears perked. The interior was a jumble of old mining gear and broken furniture, shrouded in a layer of dust that had settled like a mourning veil. Bill moved deeper into the cabin, the floorboards groaning beneath him, each step a reminder of the weight of history that lingered in this place. "A dollar's worth of old wood and memories," he said to himself, though part of him felt that he had bought more than he bargained for. His hand brushed against a rusted pickaxe, the metal cool to the touch, and a shiver ran down his spine as he turned it over in his hands. It seemed to vibrate with an energy that was both unsettling and oddly inviting. "What do you reckon, Roger? Think there's still silver hiding in these walls?" Roger growled softly, a low rumble that came from deep within his chest. The dog's instinct was sharp as ever, and Bill knew better than to ignore that. He dropped the pickaxe as a sudden chill swept through the cabin, causing the hair on the back of his neck to stand on end. The air felt charged, as though an unseen presence was watching, waiting. Bill turned, half expecting to see someone or something lurking in the shadows, but the cabin remained empty. "Just a draft, I reckon," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. He moved to the window, the glass long since shattered and gone, and peered out at the mining camp. The fading light cast long shadows that danced upon the earth like the lost souls of those who had once toiled here. Just then, something caught Roger's attention. The dog's ears perked up, and he trotted to a corner of the cabin, his nose to the ground. Bill followed, curiosity piqued. There in the dim light lay an old dog, its fur matted and its eyes clouded with age. It looked up at Bill with a gaze that held stories of its own, stories of loyalty and loss, of companionship forged in the fires of hardship. "Where'd you come from, old fella?" Bill asked softly, kneeling beside the creature. He reached out a hand, but the dog flinched, retreating into the shadows. "Ain't gonna hurt you. Just a friend looking to lend a hand." The old dog's eyes flickered with something that sent a shiver racing through Bill. Was it fear, or was there something deeper, a knowledge that transcended mere instinct? As he watched, the dog's gaze shifted to the darkened corner of the cabin, where something glimmered faintly, a small silver locket half buried in the dust. Bill's heart raced as he approached the locket. He reached down to pick it up, but just as his fingers brushed the surface, it vanished before his eyes, leaving only an impression in the dirt. He blinked, stunned, and looked back at the old dog, whose gaze remained fixed on the empty space where the locket had just been. "What in tarnation?" Bill breathed, the words barely escaping his lips. Roger growled again, a low, warning sound that resonated in the air. Bill stood frozen, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. There was no doubt about it. Trouble was indeed brewing in this abandoned camp, and he had a feeling that unraveling its mystery would be no simple task. As dusk deepened, shadows stretched across the floor, curling around Bill's boots like fingers reaching for something lost. The old dog watched him with an intensity that seemed to beckon him deeper into the unknown. Bill's mind raced, weighing the implications of what he had just witnessed. It was the kind of mystery that could draw a man in, like a moth to a flame, and he felt the pull of it in his very bones. The world outside faded away as he focused on the shadowy corners of the cabin. Whatever had lingered here, whatever had been lost, it was calling to him, and Bill knew that he wouldn't be able to walk away without uncovering the truth. He cast a glance at Roger, whose watchful eyes mirrored his own resolve. "Looks like we got ourselves a mystery to solve, partner," he said quietly, the weight of the unknown hanging thick in the air. And as he turned back toward the darkness, the old dog at his side, Bill steeled himself for the eerie journey that lay ahead, the thrill of discovery igniting a spark within him that he thought had long since faded. Bill felt a prickling sensation crawl up his spine as he knelt in the dim light of the cabin, the air thick with dust and the scent of old wood. He could sense that the old dog beside him was attuned to something deeper, something that lay beyond the realm of the living. "Come on, Roger," he murmured, giving the dog an encouraging pat. "Let's see what else we can dig up round here." With careful movements, he began to scan the corners of the cabin, each shadowy crevice a potential hiding place for the secrets this forsaken structure held. Bill had learned a thing or two in his years as a cowboy. Patience was just as valuable as a steady hand. He started at the far wall, running his fingers along the rough timber, feeling for any hidden compartments or loose boards. His heart pounded steadily in his chest, an echo of the stories that had unfolded in this very spot long before he had set foot inside. Roger trotted nearby, his nose twitching as he inspected the ground, every sound in the cabin drawing his keen attention. The dog paused by the fireplace, its embers long cold, but it seemed to sense something amiss. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, shifting his focus to the hearth. "You smell something?" With a quick bark, Roger nudged at a pile of soot and ash, his persistent digging revealing a small, blackened tin can. Bill knelt down beside him, brushing away the soot with his hands. "Let's see what you found," he said, excitement lacing his voice. As he pried open the can, a cloud of dust erupted, catching the fading sunlight that streamed through the broken window. Inside lay a handful of tarnished coins, their surfaces marked by age but unmistakably silver. Bill's eyes widened as he lifted them into the light, their glow igniting a spark of hope. "Looks like you got a nose for treasure, Roger," he chuckled, tossing one of the coins lightly in the air before catching it. But just as he was about to pocket his find, he noticed something etched into the bottom of the can. A symbol, a crude drawing of a mountain with a serpent coiling around it. Bill's brow furrowed. "This ain't no ordinary can, is it?" he muttered. Roger growled again, a low, resonant sound that rumbled in the stillness of the cabin. Bill's heart raced. The dog's instincts had always been sharp, and he knew better than to dismiss that growl. He could feel it in the air, an unshakable tension that had settled like a weight on his chest. "All right then, let's get to the bottom of this," Bill said, his voice steady despite the apprehension creeping into his thoughts. He set the can aside, allowing Roger to lead him as they made their way toward the darkened corner where the locket had vanished. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, as if alive, inviting him to delve deeper into their embrace. As he approached, Bill noticed more remnants of the past. Old mining tools scattered haphazardly, a weathered hat hanging from a nail, and a tattered map half buried beneath the floorboards. He pried it free, the brittle paper cracking under his fingers. Unfolding it gently, he saw marked trails and faded notations that detailed the very mining routes that had once teemed with life. "Looks like this camp was busier than a rattlesnake in a rabbit hole," he mused aloud, tracing a finger over the scrawled lines. But there, amidst the notes, was another symbol, the same serpent coiling around a mountain. His heart sank as he realized it was no mere coincidence. This place was steeped in the kind of lore that could send shivers down a man's spine. Roger sniffed the map, then lifted his head, ears perked. He turned toward the door, a clear signal that something was stirring outside. Bill glanced at the entrance, the light outside dimming rapidly, the shadows thickening. "What's got you so riled up, old friend?" he whispered, feeling the tension coil like a spring. Just then, a faint sound drifted through the broken window, a whisper carried on the wind, almost like a voice calling from the depths of the past. Bill strained to listen, his breath hitching as the words became clearer, though they were still indistinct. "Help, help." His heart raced, a mixture of dread and curiosity igniting his senses. "Did you hear that, Roger?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The dog barked low and urgent before moving toward the door, his instincts guiding him with unwavering confidence. Bill felt the pull of that voice, a thread weaving through the fabric of time, beckoning him to uncover what lay hidden. "Let's go," he said, determination hardening his resolve. He reached for the old lantern hanging by the door, igniting it with a match. The flickering light cast wavering shadows on the walls, but it was enough to guide him through the gloom. As he stepped outside, the air was cool and heavy with the scent of earth and impending night. The mining camp lay before him, a ghost of its former self, the ruins standing sentinel against the encroaching darkness. Roger moved ahead, nose to the ground, leading the way as they ventured deeper into the remnants of what had once been a thriving settlement. Each creak of the old structures seemed to whisper secrets of those who had come before, and Bill felt as if he were walking on sacred ground. He squinted into the shadows, searching for the source of the voice he had heard. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment he thought he glimpsed a figure, a fleeting shadow slipping between the remnants of the past. "Hold up, Roger," he commanded softly, heart pounding. The dog paused, his ears alert, and Bill felt the world around him shift, as if the very air were thickening with anticipation. Whatever lay ahead, he knew he was on the brink of discovering something profound, something that transcended time itself. "Let's find out what's lingering in these parts," he said, steeling himself as he stepped further into the mystery, the old dog by his side, loyal as ever. The night deepened, the shadows lengthening around them, but Bill felt an odd comfort in the company of his four-legged friend. Together, they would face whatever secrets awaited them in the heart of the ghostly camp. The night wrapped around Bill like a thick, heavy blanket, stifling and yet oddly comforting in its embrace. The lantern flickered in his hand, casting a warm glow that danced on the cold, crumbling walls of the mining camp. Shadows stretched and yawned, morphing into shapes that played tricks on the mind. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and toil, the ghostly remnants of miners who had once labored in search of fortune. Roger, ever the vigilant companion, moved with purpose, his nose working overtime as he sniffed the ground, pausing every so often to listen to the night. The dog's instincts were as sharp as a tack, and Bill trusted them more than he trusted the erratic flame of his lantern. "What do you smell, old boy?" he whispered, though he knew the dog wouldn't answer. As they moved deeper into the camp, Bill's eyes roamed over the scattered debris, the once bright colors of mining carts now muted and dulled by time. He paused by a rusted pickaxe, half buried in the dirt, its handle still sturdy despite the years. "Looks like it's seen a fair share of hard work," he muttered, kneeling to examine it. But it wasn't the tools of labor that captured his attention. It was the way the earth seemed to shift beneath his feet, as if the ground held secrets just waiting to be unearthed. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest hint of something unfamiliar, a scent that curled around his senses like smoke from a dying fire. Bill straightened, letting his instincts guide him. "Let's see what's behind door number 1, he said, motioning toward a larger structure in the distance. The old supply cabin stood crooked, its door hanging by a single hinge, creaking ominously in the wind. "Stay close, Roger," he cautioned, heart racing with anticipation. The lantern light flickered against the cabin's weathered wood, revealing more than just age. The door swung open with a reluctant groan, revealing a dark interior filled with dusty crates and cobwebs that draped like ghostly veils. As he stepped inside, the stale air enveloped him, thick with the scent of mildew and memories long forgotten. Bill swept the lantern across the room, illuminating a wall covered in old flyers and notices, remnants of a community once buzzing with life. His eyes caught a faded poster pinned haphazardly to the wall. "Lost locket of gold, last seen near Silver Peak." "Now ain't that a coincidence?" Bill murmured, the weight of the locket he had found pressing against his chest. It seemed to shine with its own strange glow, a connection to this very place that felt stronger with each clue he uncovered. "Maybe the folks here didn't just go missing by accident," he pondered aloud, glancing at Roger, who remained steadfastly alert, eyes locked on a corner of the cabin where darkness pooled like ink. Bill followed his gaze, feeling a chill creep down his spine. "What do you see, boy?" With a low growl, Roger moved forward, his posture tense. Bill's heart raced. "Careful now," he whispered, inching closer. The lantern light flickered, and just as he reached the corner, something shifted. A shadow darted out of sight, barely perceptible, but enough to make the hairs on the back of Bill's neck stand on end. "Show yourself," he called, trying to keep his voice steady. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the rustling of Roger's fur as the dog growled again, low and rumbling. Bill felt a strange mix of fear and excitement as he stepped into the corner, the light revealing an old chest, its wood splintered and worn. With a deep breath, he knelt beside it, fingers brushing against the latch. "This could be it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Might just be the treasure we're looking for." He pried the chest open, hinges creaking like an old man's joints, and revealed a jumble of dusty papers, some coins, and a small velvet pouch. "What's inside, Roger?" he asked, carefully reaching for the pouch. The dog sniffed it cautiously, tail wagging with a subtle excitement. Bill's heart quickened as he opened the pouch, revealing a collection of gemstones that sparkled like stars against the darkness. "Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle," he breathed, marveling at the find. But just as he was about to celebrate, the temperature in the cabin dropped suddenly, and the air grew thick with a palpable tension. The shadows deepened, and the faint whispering returned clearer now, wrapping around him like a cold breeze. "Help! Help! What in tarnation?" Bill muttered, his earlier excitement replaced by an unsettling dread. Roger barked sharply, darting toward the door as if sensing something amiss. "Wait, Roger!" But the dog was already outside, standing sentinel, eyes fixed on the tree line beyond the cabin. Bill scrambled to his feet, the pouch clutched tightly in his hand. "We ain't done yet," he said, his voice steadying as he followed the dog outside. The lantern swung with each step, casting erratic light over the ruins, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent, carrying on the wind like a mournful song. "Who's out there?" he called into the darkness, heart pounding. The night answered with silence, but Bill felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him, an unyielding gaze from the shadows. He stepped closer to Roger, who stood firm, his growl a low rumble that seemed to echo the unease in Bill's heart. "Whatever this is, we're in it together," he said, trying to reassure both himself and his canine companion. The air crackled with tension, and somewhere in the distance a single owl hooted, as if mocking the uncertainty that hung thick in the night. Bill took a deep breath, the pouch heavy in his pocket, feeling as if it were more than just riches. It was a key to a mystery that had waited patiently for him to uncover. With Roger by his side, he steeled himself against the darkness, ready to confront whatever haunted this forsaken place, determined to reveal the truth buried beneath the weight of time. The night air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the distant promise of rain, an unsettling contrast to the chill that had settled in the cabin. Bill shifted his weight, squaring his shoulders as he regarded the darkened tree line where shadows danced and whispered secrets. "This here ain't no ordinary night," he muttered, his voice low. Roger remained vigilant, muscles taut beneath his fur, eyes fixed on something unseen. "Let's check the perimeter," Bill suggested, his resolve firming. He moved slowly, lantern held high, casting a golden glow that pushed back the darkness in hesitant waves. Each step crunched softly against the gravelly ground, the sound mingling with the whispers that seemed to echo from the depths of the woods. "Keep your eyes peeled, partner," he told Roger, who trotted beside him, alert and watchful. As they circled the cabin, Bill noted a series of old, weathered fence posts jutting from the ground like broken teeth. Beyond them lay a stretch of wild grass, swaying gently in the night breeze. He recalled the faded poster inside. The lost locket might have belonged to someone who lived here, someone who had ties to the land, and perhaps to whatever had befallen this place. "I reckon we ought to see what's beyond the posts," he said, feeling the pull of curiosity tugging at him. Roger led the way, nose to the ground as they crossed the threshold of the fence. They ventured deeper into the brush, where the trees grew thicker, their gnarled branches twisted like old hands reaching for the stars. The lantern's light flickered ominously, casting fleeting shadows that played tricks on the eyes. Bill squinted into the dark, his heart thudding with both excitement and trepidation. "Stay close, boy," he whispered, the sound of his own voice almost grounding him amidst the growing unease. Suddenly Roger halted, his ears perked and body tense. "What is it, fella?" Bill murmured, moving to stand beside him. In the distance, a low growl resonated, a sound that didn't belong in the stillness of the night. Bill felt a chill creep down his spine. "That ain't no coyote," he muttered. The growl grew louder, more menacing, and then fell silent, replaced by the sound of rustling in the underbrush. "Seems we got company," Bill said, scanning the surroundings. He tightened his grip on the lantern, illuminating the thicket where the noise had come from. Out of the shadows, something large moved, too large to be a mere rabbit or deer. Bill squinted, heart racing, as the figure became clearer. A tall silhouette emerged, framed by the flickering lantern light. A man, stooped and shadowy, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "Who goes there?" Bill called, his voice steady despite the clenching fear in his gut. The figure paused, then stepped forward, revealing a weathered visage marked by age and sorrow. "I reckon that's my question," the stranger replied, voice low and gravelly like the rumble of distant thunder. "What business do you have on this cursed land?" Bill exchanged glances with Roger, who remained poised, ready to spring into action. "Just a curious cowboy looking for answers," he replied cautiously. "Name's Bill. This here's my dog, Roger." "Curiosity's a dangerous thing around these parts," the man warned, his gaze piercing through the dim light. "I'm Gus. If you're hunting treasure, you best turn back now. There's more than gold buried here. There are spirits, lost souls that don't take kindly to intruders." "Spirits?" Bill echoed, incredulous yet intrigued. You mean like haunting spirits? Haunting? Aye, that's one way to put it, Gus said, stepping closer, the lantern illuminating his rugged features. This land was once home to folks who vanished without a trace. They say their regrets linger, trapped between this world and the next. The lost locket you found? It belongs to one of them, a girl named Eliza. She was the last to go missing, and folks believe her spirit guards the treasure, cursed to roam till she's freed. Bill's heart raced. Eliza. I found her locket. It was in the cabin. He reached for the pouch in his pocket, feeling the weight of the gems inside. What do you mean, freed? Gus's expression grew grave. The locket holds her essence. If you wish to learn more, you must return it to the ground where she was buried. Only then will her spirit rest, and you may find the truth you seek. The air around them shifted, a sudden gust that felt like a breath of something ancient and mournful. Roger growled again, tail stiffening as he turned his head, sensing the weight of history pressing in on them. What do you say, Bill? Gus continued, his eyes glinting with a mix of caution and understanding. Are you willing to take that risk? Bill stood still, caught between the promise of riches and the weight of responsibility. The night deepened, and with it, the whispers grew louder, almost urging him forward. If it means settling what happened to Eliza and the others, then I reckon I'm in, he said finally, his voice firm. Gus nodded solemnly. Then let's not waste time. The sooner you return that locket, the sooner we can unearth the truth. Follow me. Indeed. With Roger close at his side, Bill followed Gus deeper into the woods, the lantern casting their shadows long against the ancient trees. A sense of purpose surged within him, mingling with the dread of what awaited in the heart of the darkness, as the past and present intertwined, urging him onward into the unknown. The night air grew thick with anticipation as Bill followed Gus through the gnarled trees. Each step crunched softly on the carpet of fallen leaves, blending with the hushed sounds of nocturnal creatures stirring in the underbrush. The lantern light flickered like a beacon against the dark, casting a warm glow that felt almost protective amidst the encroaching shadows. Stay sharp, Roger, Bill murmured, glancing down at his dog, who moved with a keen awareness, nose twitching as he picked up scents that were lost to Bill's human senses. The bond between man and beast was palpable. Roger's instincts were finely tuned, attuned to the whispers of the woods. Don't underestimate the dark, son, Gus said, his voice a gravelly echo through the trees. Things ain't always what they seem out here. You'll see. Bill felt a knot tighten in his stomach, but he pressed on, curiosity mingling with the faint tremors of fear. So, this girl Eliza, what do you remember about her? Gus paused, his silhouette momentarily swallowed by the night. She was a bright spirit, quick with a smile and faster with a laugh. Folks say she had a way of lighting up the darkest corners of this world. But when she went missing, the light faded and the townsfolk lost their hope. The land wept for her. A chill danced across Bill's skin. He thought of the locket, its delicate filigree, and the faint glow of the gems within. What happened to her? Do you know? Ain't no one knows for sure, Gus replied, resuming their trek. Some reckon she ran off with a drifter. Others claim she was taken by something far worse, but I believe she's trapped here, caught in the web of her own story, waiting for someone to set it right. The forest thickened, and the trees grew denser, their limbs twisting like the fingers of a giant, reaching out to snatch intruders from the path. As they moved deeper, the air turned heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Bill's heart raced, each beat echoing in his ears like the rhythmic thud of a drum. Suddenly, Roger stopped, hackles raised, eyes locked onto a thicket ahead. What is it, boy? Bill whispered, instinctively lowering his lantern. A rustling came from the bushes, accompanied by a soft whimper that sent a shiver down Bill's spine. Gus, you hear that? Stay put, Gus said, his voice low and commanding. He stepped forward, lantern raised, illuminating the underbrush. Out of the shadows, a small figure emerged. A scruffy dog, its fur matted and dirty, eyes wide with fear. What in tarnation? Bill exclaimed, kneeling down. Looks like another lost soul. Could be a sign, Gus muttered, his gaze fixed on the creature. Animals can sense what we can't. The dog approached cautiously, tail tucked between its legs, as if it knew it was on haunted ground. Bill extended a hand, allowing the creature to sniff him. "Easy now, fella. You're safe." The dog tentatively approached, then leaned against Bill's leg, seeking comfort. "You got a heart for lost critters, don't you?" Gus remarked, watching with a mixture of surprise and respect. "You might want to keep that pup close. It may guide you to what you seek." As they continued walking, the night deepened, and the air grew thick with an otherworldly tension. Bill kept his lantern steady, its light flickering against the tall trees, revealing glimpses of twisted roots and tangled underbrush. Each crackle of a twig beneath their boots felt like a warning, urging them to turn back. "I reckon we're close," Gus said, glancing around. "Eliza's grave should be near the old well. It's said to be a place where the veil between this world and the next is thin." Bill's heart raced at the thought. "You think we might find her spirit there?" "Maybe. Or maybe just more questions," Gus replied, his voice layered with a mix of hope and foreboding. They reached a clearing, and at its center stood the remnants of an old well, stones worn and crumbling with age. The air here felt charged, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Bill stepped closer, peering down into the dark, where the echoes of time lingered like ghosts. "Help me look for a marker," he said, glancing at Gus. "There must be something to tell us where Eliza's resting place is." They began searching the perimeter of the clearing, brushing aside leaves and debris. Roger sniffed diligently at the ground, his instincts guiding him to an area just to the right of the well. He pawed at the earth, whining softly. "Look at that," Bill called, rushing over. He knelt beside Roger, fingers digging into the soil. As he scraped away the loose dirt, a wooden cross emerged, aged and weathered but still standing. The name Eliza was carved into the wood, barely legible but undeniable. Bill's breath hitched. "We found it, Gus. This must be it." Gus stepped closer, reverence etched into his features. "Now we must return the locket to her grave. It's the only way to give her peace." Bill nodded, heart pounding in his chest as he retrieved the pouch from his pocket. The moment felt monumental, a bridge between the living and the lost. He opened the pouch and took out the locket, its gems glinting in the dim light. With trembling hands, he placed the locket atop the grave. The moment it touched the wood, a cool breeze swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver up Bill's spine. Roger barked softly, as if sensing a shift in the air. "Is this it?" Bill asked, a mix of hope and doubt swirling within him. "Is this how we set her free?" As if in response, the wind picked up, swirling around them like a dance of spirits. The night deepened, and the shadows thickened, as if the very earth was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Bill felt a weight lift from his shoulders, the tension of the unknown giving way to the promise of revelation. In that moment, he realized that the true treasure lay not in gold or jewels, but in the stories buried deep within the land, and perhaps in the freedom of a spirit trapped for too long. The wind whistled through the clearing, carrying with it the chill of the night, and Bill felt an unexplainable heaviness settle in his chest. He glanced at Gus, who stood with arms crossed, studying the old well, a furrow deepening on his brow. "You reckon this is enough?" Bill asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Gus shrugged, his gaze still fixed on the well. "Sometimes just being here is what counts. But I'll wager there's more to uncover. It ain't often a locket sets a spirit free. There's a reason she's still tethered to this spot." As if sensing the weight of their conversation, Roger sniffed the ground, his ears perked, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, instinctively moving closer to the dog. Roger's nose twitched, and he moved away from the grave, heading toward the well. He paused, casting a glance back at Bill, as if urging him to follow. "Looks like he's got a nose for something," Gus observed, taking a few cautious steps toward the well. The lantern light flickered against the mossy stones, casting eerie shadows that danced on the ground. "Let's see what he's found." Juditish, they approached the well, the air thickening with an unsettling energy. Roger stood at the edge, sniffing intently, his tail quivering. Bill knelt beside the dog, peering down into the darkness. "There's got to be a way to see deeper," he muttered, searching for anything that could help. "Here," Gus said, holding up a sturdy branch he had pried from a nearby tree. "We can lower this down and see if we can snag something." Bill took the branch, grateful for the help. He tied one end of his rope around it, then cautiously lowered it into the well. The darkness swallowed the branch, and Bill strained to listen, holding his breath as he felt it brush against something below. "Easy now," Gus urged, eyes fixed on the rope. "Don't go pulling it too hard." After a few moments, the rope suddenly tensed, and Bill's heart raced. "I think I got something," he exclaimed, pulling it up slowly. The lantern's light flickered over the surface of the water, revealing a strange, glimmering object tangled in the branch. With a grunt, he hoisted it up and into the clearing. "What in the world?" he breathed, as he brushed away the mud to reveal a tarnished silver key, ornate and heavy in his hand. "Could be a key to something," Gus pondered, eyebrows raised. "Or maybe a lock to something that's been lost to time. Might be connected to Eliza." Roger barked again, as if to emphasize the importance of the find. Bill felt a rush of excitement mixed with trepidation. "A key? What do you reckon it opens?" he asked, glancing at Gus, who was now examining the well more closely. "Could be the cabin, or maybe a hidden stash around here," Gus mused, his voice trailing off as he continued to scan the area. "But it's curious, ain't it? A key buried near her grave. Might be a sign of something left unfinished." Bill turned the key over in his hands, feeling the weight of its history. It seemed to pulse with untold stories, a tangible connection to the past. "We need to find out what it unlocks," he said resolutely, stuffing it into his pocket. As they prepared to leave the clearing, Roger suddenly stood rigid, ears pricked high. Bill could see the dog's body tense, muscles coiled like a spring, eyes fixed on the trees beyond. "What is it, boy?" he asked, his heart racing once more. Then came the unmistakable sound. Footsteps crunching through the underbrush, heavy and deliberate. A chill raced down Bill's spine. "Gus, we ain't alone. I reckon we should hightail it out of here," Gus said, his voice steady but urgent. "Best not to stick around for whatever's coming." Before they could move, a shadow emerged from the thicket, tall and imposing against the pale moonlight. Bill squinted, heart pounding, and felt a wave of recognition wash over him. It was a figure clad in a tattered duster, a wide-brimmed hat obscuring its face. "Who goes there?" Gus called, taking a protective step in front of Bill. The figure halted, tilting its head, the brim of the hat casting a dark shadow over its features. "You're trespassing on sacred ground," the voice rasped, low and gravelly, echoing like an old memory. Bill felt his breath catch. "We're just looking for answers, sir. We mean no harm." "Who? Answers?" The figure stepped forward, revealing a worn face and eyes that seemed to shimmer with an ancient wisdom. "This land holds many secrets, Cowboy. Some are best left buried. What do you know of Eliza?" Bill blurted out, desperation creeping into his voice. "We're trying to set her spirit free." A faint smile tugged at the corners of the figure's lips. "You seek to free the bound, yet some bonds are stronger than the ties of the living. You've uncovered the key, now it's up to you to unlock the truth." Bill felt a chill creep up his spine, a sense of foreboding wrapping around him like a serpent. The figure gestured toward the well, shadows flickering in the lantern light. "The past has a way of creeping back, whether you invite it or not. Choose wisely, for the path ahead is fraught with danger." With that, the figure began to dissolve into the night air, leaving Bill and Gus standing in stunned silence, Roger growling softly at the fading presence. "What in tarnation just happened?" Bill murmured, still reeling from the encounter. Gus turned to him, his expression grave. "I think we've just stepped into something much bigger than we bargained for, Bill. That key might unlock more than just a door." Bill felt the weight of the key in his pocket, the pulse of the unknown beckoning him to delve deeper into the mysteries of the land and the spirit they sought to free. The night stretched on, full of shadows and whispers, the promise of untold secrets lingering in the air. The cool night air enveloped Bill like a cloak as he stood rooted to the spot, the echo of the mysterious figure's words bouncing around in his mind. He glanced at Gus, whose brow was furrowed in thought, and at Roger, who had finally settled but remained vigilant, ears perked and eyes scanning the darkness. "Gus, we can't just turn tail and run," Bill said, determination hardening in his voice. "If there's a chance we can help Eliza, we owe it to her to follow this trail wherever it leads." "Sometimes, Bill," Gus replied, scratching his beard thoughtfully, "the best help is to let the dead lie. But I reckon you're right about one thing. We're in deeper than a cowpoke in quicksand. If that key unlocks something, we ought to find out what." Bill felt a swell of gratitude for his friend's steady presence. "Then let's get to it," he said, leading the way back toward the cabin, where the moonlight painted silver lines across the worn wooden structure. Roger trotted ahead, snuffling around the edges of the cabin, his instincts sharp as a hawk's. Bill and Gus followed closely behind, the lantern flickering with a determined flame as they approached the creaking door. Bill's heart raced. The cabin felt alive with the whispers of the past, a sentinel guarding secrets long hidden. "Can't say I'm not feeling a mite spooked," Gus muttered, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the figure to reappear at any moment. "What if we're stirring up something better left undisturbed?" "We won't know till we try," Bill said, shoving the door open. It swung inward with a groan, revealing a dim interior, thick with dust motes swirling in the lantern light. Old wooden furniture stood like ghosts, shadows cast long across the floorboards, remnants of lives lived long ago. "Let's start with the bedroom," Bill suggested, nodding toward a door at the far end of the room. "That's where folks kept their valuables and keepsakes." As they moved deeper into the cabin, Roger took the lead, sniffing cautiously at the corners, his tail low, but his stance alert. Bill couldn't shake the feeling that the old dog was more than just a pet. There was something wise and knowing about him, as if he could sense the lingering spirit of Eliza herself. The bedroom was small, cluttered with remnants of a life once vibrant. A bed frame sagged in the corner, covered in a faded quilt that had seen better days. A dresser stood against the wall, its surface littered with dust, but a few knickknacks caught Bill's eye. A small porcelain horse, a cracked mirror, and a weathered journal with a cracked spine. "Now that looks like it might hold some stories," Gus said, pointing to the journal. Bill picked it up gingerly, brushing away the dust with a reverent touch. "Let's see what Eliza had to say," he said, flipping open the cover. The pages were yellowed and brittle, the ink faded but legible. "March 17th, 1888, he read aloud, his brow furrowing. "Today, I feel a change in the air. The winds whisper secrets, and I can sense a presence watching over me." Gus leaned in closer, eyes wide. "What kind of presence?" "It ain't clear," Bill replied, scanning the entries. "But here, she mentions a key, the key to my heart and my home, a burden I cannot carry alone." "What does that mean?" Gus pondered, scratching his head. "I reckon it means something weighs heavy on her spirit. We're gonna need to piece together what she meant." Bill continued reading, each entry revealing more of Eliza's life, filled with hopes, dreams, and heartache. As he flipped through the pages, he found mentions of a hidden place, somewhere deep in the valley, a spot where the moonlight kissed the earth just right. "That could be where the key fits," Bill said, feeling the pulse of the story quickening. "If we can find that place, maybe we can release whatever holds her here." Roger barked softly, snapping Bill from his reverie. The dog trotted to the window, sniffing at the air. Bill followed, peering through the cracked glass. A shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the cabin's reach, and his heart raced anew. "Gus, did you see that?" he whispered urgently. Gus stepped up beside him, squinting into the darkness. "I reckon we're being watched again. Best be ready for anything." They exchanged glances, the tension in the air thickening like a brewing storm. Bill tucked the journal under his arm, sensing the weight of the task ahead. The mysteries of Eliza's life were unfurling like a map, leading them deeper into the heart of the valley and the secrets it held. "Let's move out, but keep your wits about you," Gus said, edging toward the door. Bill nodded, feeling Roger brush against his leg, the dog's presence a comforting anchor amid the rising tide of unease. As they stepped back into the moonlit night, the world outside felt charged, alive with whispers of the past. The key in Bill's pocket seemed to hum with anticipation, and he knew that whatever lay ahead, the adventure would test their mettle like never before. The path forward was shrouded in mystery, but Bill was determined to follow it to the very end, with Eliza's spirit guiding them through the darkened frontier. The air outside was crisp, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and the sharp tang of pine, a stark contrast to the dusty confines of the cabin. Bill felt invigorated by the cool night air, even as a shiver of anticipation danced down his spine. Gus stepped lightly into the clearing, scanning the tree line as if it might yield answers to the questions swirling in his mind. "Keep your eyes peeled," Bill said quietly, leading the way into the wild. Roger trotted ahead, his nose twitching, as if deciphering a code written in the smells of the earth. The moon hung low, casting silver light that glimmered off the leaves, creating a whimsical dance of shadows that seemed to watch them as they moved deeper into the wilderness. "Where do we start looking for this hidden place?" Gus asked, his voice hushed, almost reverent. "This valley's bigger than a cowpoke's dreams, and I ain't keen on wandering aimlessly." "Let's follow the river," Bill suggested, gesturing toward a faint sound of rushing water in the distance. "Eliza mentioned it in her journal. It might lead us to where the moonlight kisses the earth, whatever that means." With Roger leading the way, the trio made their way toward the river, careful to avoid the gnarled roots that snaked across the path like old sleeping serpents. The water sparkled under the moonlight, a silver ribbon winding through the valley, and as they approached, Bill could feel the thrum of energy in the air, as if the very ground were alive with secrets. "Now, if I was a ghostly figure, I'd be setting up shop near water," Gus mused, his eyes reflecting the moon's glow. "It's the lifeblood of the land, after all." "Can't say I disagree," Bill replied, bending down to study the riverbank. "Eliza might have left us something in these here waters, or perhaps near it." He brushed his hand over the stones, feeling their coolness beneath his fingers. "Let's see if we can find any sign of her." Roger, ever alert, darted toward a cluster of rocks, sniffing eagerly. Bill straightened up, following the dog's lead. "What you got there, boy?" he called, moving closer. The dog pawed at a patch of damp earth, revealing a small piece of metal glinting in the moonlight. "Look at that!" Gus exclaimed, crouching down beside Roger. "Could be an old key, just like the one Eliza mentioned." Bill knelt next to Gus, his heart racing as he picked up the object. It was small, intricately designed, though tarnished with age. "Mighty fine piece," he said, turning it over in his palm. "Could it be a clue to that hidden place?" "Could be," Gus agreed, eyeing the river. "But where does it lead us?" "We'll figure that out. But first, let's keep looking for more clues," Bill replied, feeling a flicker of hope. If Eliza was searching for something, she might have left us more than just a trinket. As they pressed on, the river's song grew louder, filling the silence with a soothing melody. The trio fell into a rhythm, their footsteps muted by the soft earth. Bill's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of Eliza's life. He recalled her words about a burden, a heartache. What could it be that tethered her spirit to this world? Suddenly, Roger halted, ears perked, body tense. Bill followed the dog's gaze to a shadow slipping between the trees. "What in tarnation was that?" he whispered, his instincts flaring. "Could be just a critter," Gus said, though his tone held a hint of uncertainty. "No, this feels different," Bill replied, heart thumping against his ribs. "We need to be careful." He moved slowly toward the shadow, Roger leading the way, with a low growl rumbling in his throat. As they neared the tree line, the shadow coalesced into the shape of a figure, a woman draped in white, her hair flowing like mist around her shoulders. Bill's breath caught in his throat. "Is that? By thunder, it sure looks like her!" Gus exclaimed, stepping back in surprise. The figure turned and Bill felt an inexplicable pull, as if the very essence of Eliza was reaching out to him. "Do not be afraid," Her voice floated through the night, soft yet commanding, as if the wind carried her words on its breath. "You have come, seeking the key." Bill swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her gaze. "Eliza, is that truly you?" The figure nodded, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I am bound to this place, still searching for what I lost. The key you hold is but a piece of the puzzle, a guide to where my heart lies." Gus's eyes darted from the figure to Bill, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "What do you mean, Eliza?" "The moonlit valley holds my truth," she replied, gesturing with an ethereal hand toward the river. "Follow the water, and you shall find what was hidden from me. But beware, for not all spirits wish to see the light." Bill's heart raced, a combination of thrill and trepidation washing over him. "What do we need to do?" "Listen to the whispers of the valley," she said, her form beginning to shimmer like sunlight through the leaves. "They will guide you to the heart of the mystery, and there you will find the key to my freedom." With that, the figure faded into the night, leaving behind a lingering warmth in the air. Bill stood frozen, the weight of her words heavy on his shoulders. "Did you see that, Gus? We're on the right path." Gus shook his head, half in disbelief, half in excitement. "I reckon we got a ghost to chase, and it's a mighty fine one at that." Roger barked as if to agree, and Bill felt a surge of determination. They had a mission now, a purpose that transcended mere curiosity. The key felt warm in his pocket, almost alive with promise, and with Eliza's spirit guiding them, he knew they would uncover the truth. "Let's get to it," Bill said, his voice steady. "We've got a mystery to unravel, and I aim to see it through." They pressed forward, the moonlight illuminating their path, the whispers of the valley echoing around them, urging them on as they followed the river toward the unknown. The moon hung high above the valley, casting silver beams that danced along the surface of the river. Bill felt a shiver run down his spine, not from fear, but from the thrill of discovery. He glanced back at Roger, who stood vigilant, ears pricked and nose twitching, as if the dog could sense the weight of the mystery they were about to unravel. "Keep your wits about you, Roger," Bill murmured, stroking the dog's head. "We've got ourselves a ghost to chase, and I reckon this valley holds more than just echoes of the past." As they continued along the bank, the river's current whispered secrets, soft and elusive. Bill knelt by the water, his eyes scanning the rocky shore. "Eliza mentioned the moonlit valley," he said thoughtfully. "If we're to find what she lost, we might need to look closer to the water's edge." Gus, who was inspecting a cluster of stones, nodded. "I reckon the water's been here longer than we have. If there's something to find, it could be buried right under our noses." Bill stood, moving upstream, his boots squelching softly in the damp earth. As he walked, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the key, the tarnished metal gleaming faintly under the moonlight. "This here key, what's it unlock? A chest, a door, or maybe something even more mysterious?" He turned it over in his hand, searching for any markings or inscriptions that might provide a clue. Roger trotted ahead, sniffing intently at the ground. Suddenly, he stopped, tail rigid and gaze fixated on a patch of wildflowers swaying gently in the night breeze. Bill exchanged a glance with Gus, who shrugged, bewildered. "What's got the mutt's knickers in a twist?" "Let's check it out," Bill said, moving cautiously toward the flowers. Roger barked as if urging them on. When they reached the spot, Bill knelt beside the blooms. The flowers were vibrant, bright against the muted tones of the surrounding earth, but it was what lay beneath that caught his attention. He brushed the petals aside and unearthed a small, weathered journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. "Well, would you look at that?" he exclaimed, his heart racing. "Could this be Eliza's?" Gus leaned closer, his eyes widening. "Open it, Bill. Let's see what secrets it holds." With careful hands, Bill pried open the journal. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. He flipped through the entries, his brow furrowing as he read snippets of Eliza's thoughts, her hopes and her fears. "Seems she was a writer of sorts," he said, feeling the weight of her words. "She wrote about a love lost and a treasure hidden, but it's all so vague." Gus peered over his shoulder, pointing to a particular entry. "Look here, Bill. She mentions a hidden grove near the river. Says it's a place where dreams and memories intertwine. Dreams and memories, huh? Bill mused, flipping to another page. Might just be what we're looking for. As he continued to read, a chill crept into the air, the night growing still, as if the world held its breath. Then Roger barked again, snapping Bill out of his reverie. The dog was pacing back and forth, tail raised and ears perked, sniffing the air. "What's gotten into you, boy?" Bill asked, standing up and scanning the area. It felt as though the shadows had deepened, the trees looming closer, their branches stretching like fingers in the moonlight. Suddenly, a low, haunting sound echoed through the valley, a wail that sent chills racing down Bill's spine. "What in tarnation was that?" he whispered, heart pounding in his chest. Gus took a step back, eyes wide. "I don't reckon we ought to stick around to find out. That don't sound friendly." But Bill felt a pull, an urge to investigate. "No, we can't turn back now. We've come too far." He glanced at the journal, then back toward the river. "The grove might be nearby. If that sound is a spirit, we may need to confront it head-on." With Roger leading the way, they pressed forward, the wail echoing faintly behind them as they followed the river's winding path. Bill's instincts were on high alert. He felt the air thrum with energy, as if the valley itself was alive, whispering secrets just beyond reach. "Over there!" Gus pointed toward a cluster of trees up ahead, their trunks twisted and gnarled, forming a natural archway that beckoned them closer. "That looks like a grove, all right." As they approached, Bill felt a strange sensation, a mix of excitement and dread. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, and the wailing morphed into a soft, melodic hum, weaving through the branches above. It was both alluring and unsettling, as if the very essence of the valley was trying to draw them in. "Keep your eyes peeled," Bill instructed, his voice low. "We don't know what we might find in there." Roger moved ahead, his nose to the ground, guiding them toward the heart of the grove. Bill could feel his pulse quicken, the anticipation mingling with an undercurrent of fear. What awaited them in this hidden realm? What would they uncover about Eliza's past, and what other spirits lingered in the shadows? With each step, the grove seemed to pulse with life, and Bill knew they were on the brink of something profound, a moment that could change everything. He held the key tightly in his hand, ready to unlock whatever truth lay hidden within the depths of the night. The grove loomed ahead, a strange amalgam of shadows and silvery moonlight filtering through the twisted branches. Bill squinted, trying to make out the shapes beyond the gnarled trees. The air grew cooler, a shiver of anticipation prickling at his skin. "Stay close, Gus," he murmured, glancing over his shoulder. The sound of the river faded into a gentle whisper, replaced by the delicate rustling of leaves as a gentle breeze wove through the trees. Roger paused, his head tilted, nose twitching as he sniffed the air. Bill studied the dog closely. Roger had an uncanny knack for sensing trouble before it reared its ugly head. "You smell something, boy?" he asked, kneeling beside his loyal companion. The dog's ears perked up, and he let out a soft whine, inching toward a cluster of wildflowers that stood apart from the others, vibrant even in the moonlight. "Let's check it out," Bill said. Curiosity piqued. He crouched down, brushing aside the flowers to reveal a patch of ground that looked distinctly different from the rest of the grove. There, half buried in the dirt, was a smooth stone etched with peculiar symbols. They were unlike any markings Bill had ever seen, swirling lines that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "Gus, come look at this," he called, his voice low. Gus shuffled over, squinting at the stone. "What do you reckon it is? Some kind of Indian rock?" He traced a finger along the carvings. "Looks like it tells a story of some sort." "Could be," Bill replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "Might even be connected to Eliza's writings. If this is a hidden treasure she mentioned, it could be the key." He glanced at Roger, whose eyes were now darting around the grove, alert and watchful. "You're onto something, aren't you, boy?" As if in response, Roger let out a sharp bark, bounding toward the edge of the grove. Bill followed, heart thumping in rhythm with the dog's excited panting. They emerged into a small clearing, and there, shimmering under the moonlight, was an old well. Its stones were worn, yet it stood proud, surrounded by an array of wildflowers that swayed gently as if they were whispering secrets to one another. "Now that's peculiar," Gus said, stepping up beside Bill. "A well out here in the middle of nowhere. You reckon it still works?" Bill peered down into the depths, but the darkness swallowed his gaze. "Can't say for sure, but it could be worth a look. Eliza might have hidden something down there." He knelt at the edge, trying to gauge how deep it was. The air felt different here, thick with a sense of expectation, as if the very earth was holding its breath. "Wait just a minute," Gus said, a hint of caution in his voice. "What if there's something down there we don't want to meet, like a rattler or worse?" "Maybe so," Bill conceded, "but we can't be chicken now. I reckon we need to find out if this well's got any connection to Eliza's treasure." He pulled a length of rope from his saddlebag, tying one end to a sturdy rock nearby. "If I lower this down and feel something solid, we'll know it's worth the trouble." As he fashioned the makeshift grappling hook, Roger circled the well, his movements frantic. Bill shot him a puzzled glance. "You sure are restless tonight, aren't you, Roger?" The dog paused. His ears perked high, then dashed back toward the grove, barking insistently. "What in tarnation is it now?" Bill wondered aloud, and without waiting for an answer, he stood and followed. Roger led them back to where the symbols were etched in the stone. The air was thick with a strange energy, and as Bill reached the markings, he felt an unexplainable tingle race up his spine. "There's something about this place," he said almost to himself. "It's like it's alive. Alive or not, I'd feel a heap better if we were back at that cabin," Gus muttered, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. Just then, the soft melodic hum returned, rising and falling like a lullaby. Bill furrowed his brow, glancing around. "Do you hear that? It's like the grove is singing to us." Roger barked again, his focus unwavering, as he darted from the symbols to the well and back. "Looks like Roger's got an idea," Bill said, a mixture of trepidation and excitement in his voice. "Let's follow his lead." They moved with Roger, who seemed to be guiding them deeper into the grove, his tail wagging but his posture tense, alert to unseen dangers. Bill felt the air thrum with anticipation, the melodic hum growing louder, wrapping around them like an embrace. "Something's here, Gus," Bill said, a sense of urgency igniting within him. "I can feel it in my bones." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves in a wild dance, and as they ventured further, they stumbled upon a small clearing lit by the silvery moonlight. In the center stood a cluster of stones arranged in a circle, each one marked with the same swirling symbols as the stone they had found earlier. Bill's heart raced as he surveyed the scene, a realization dawning on him. This is a gathering place, a shrine of sorts. Gus stepped closer, awe creeping into his voice. "What do you think it's for?" "Perhaps it's a place where the past and present meet," Bill replied, feeling the weight of history settle around them. "Eliza's words spoke of dreams and memories intertwining, and I reckon this is where that happens." Roger sniffed the ground, then began to circle the stone arrangement, his demeanor shifting from excited to cautious. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, kneeling beside the dog. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the grove, and the ground vibrated beneath them. "We gotta get out of here!" Gus shouted, panic rising in his voice. But Bill remained, transfixed by the stones, the hum now a chorus of voices whispering through the night. "No, wait! There's something we need to discover." He reached out, his fingers brushing against one of the stones, and in that moment, a blinding light burst forth, illuminating the grove in a dazzling glow. Bill stood frozen, caught between awe and terror as the voices grew louder, weaving tales of loss, longing, and a treasure that lay just beyond reach. In the heart of the grove, the past beckoned, and the mysteries of Eliza's world began to unravel, revealing secrets that could change everything for him and Gus, and perhaps even the restless spirit of Roger himself. The light from the stone blazed with a brilliance that cast long shadows across the grove, illuminating the swirling symbols with an ethereal glow. Bill squinted against the radiance, his heart pounding in his chest as the whispers enveloped him, drawing him in like the warm embrace of a summer breeze. "What in tarnation is this?" he murmured, half to himself and half to the universe that felt suddenly alive around him. "Bill, we gotta hightail it out of here," Gus shouted, his voice edged with a raw panic that cut through the enchanting melody. He stood rooted a few paces away, eyes wide, the color drained from his face as he gestured toward the encroaching darkness, where the trees seemed to draw closer, their twisted branches reaching like gnarled fingers. But Bill didn't move. The voices, though soft, carried a weight, a depth that resonated in his bones. They spoke of lost dreams and buried hopes, and the treasure Eliza had whispered about felt tantalizingly close, like the last rays of sunlight before the dusk swallowed the land. "I can't leave yet, Gus. There's something here that wants to be found. Eliza's treasure, I reckon." Roger, ever the sentinel, stood at Bill's side, his hackles raised, scanning the perimeter with a keen intelligence. The dog's eyes glimmered in the moonlight, and he let out a low growl that rumbled from deep within his chest, as if warning against unseen dangers lurking just beyond the reach of light. "Damn it, Bill. Don't go making a fool of yourself. This ain't the time for daydreaming," Gus insisted, his voice nearly breaking. "We need to skedaddle before that light brings something we can't handle." Ignoring his friend's pleas, Bill reached deeper into the grove, his fingers tingling with energy as they brushed against the stone. He felt a surge of warmth travel up his arm, and suddenly, images flickered in his mind. A vision of Eliza, her face alight with hope, holding a small, intricately carved box, its surface glimmering with the same symbols that adorned the stones around him. "It's her," he whispered, eyes wide with realization. "She wants us to find it." The ground trembled once more, the rumble growing louder, a warning echoing through the trees. Roger barked, frantic now, as if he sensed the urgency that eluded Bill. All right," Bill relented, pulling back his hand, but his heart ached at the thought of leaving. "We'll search for the treasure later, but I need to mark this spot. There's something important about it. I can feel it in my gut." Gus exhaled sharply, eyes darting around as he stepped closer to Bill. "You think you can remember where this place is? 'Cause I ain't sure we'll be welcome if we stick around much longer." Bill nodded, his gaze never leaving the stones. He quickly pulled out a scrap of parchment from his pocket and began sketching the arrangement of the stones, the symbols dancing on the page as the light flickered. "I'll make a map. It won't be pretty, but I'll know how to find it again." Roger sniffed the air, his ears twitching, and then he darted toward the edge of the grove, barking a warning as though sensing the approach of something unseen. Bill's heart raced at the thought of what could be lurking beyond the veil of shadows. "Let's not waste time, Bill," Gus urged again, his voice strained. "We need to clear out. I don't like the feeling in my bones." With a final stroke, Bill completed his map, folding the parchment carefully and tucking it into his shirt pocket. "All right, let's make tracks," he agreed. But as they turned to leave, the light flickered again, casting an ominous glow behind them. Roger stood firm, his posture tense as if he were a soldier guarding his post. He barked again, deeper this time, and then bolted toward the trees as if he'd spotted something just beyond the reach of their vision. "Hold up, Roger!" Bill shouted, following closely behind. The dog dashed into the underbrush, and the two men hurried after him, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the thrum of the earth beneath their feet. Branches snagged at their clothes, and leaves rustled ominously overhead, whispering secrets that only the night could understand. In the fading light, Roger halted abruptly, his nose to the ground, and began to dig furiously at the base of a large oak tree. "What's got into you, boy?" Bill asked, kneeling beside him, curiosity piqued. "You think you found something?" As the dog unearthed a small, weathered box, Bill felt a shiver of anticipation race through him. The box, worn but intricately designed, bore the same swirling symbols they had seen at the stones. "Gus, look at this!" Bill exclaimed, eyes wide with wonder. Gus crouched beside him, his expression shifting from panic to awe. "Well, I'll be a son of a gun. You reckon this is Eliza's treasure?" Bill lifted the box carefully, brushing away the dirt and leaves. "I reckon it just might be. The air around them thickened with an electric tension as he opened the lid, revealing a collection of small trinkets and a piece of parchment that seemed to shimmer even in the muted moonlight. Bill's breath caught in his throat. "This is it, Gus. This is what we've been looking for." As they gazed into the box, the whispers from the grove grew louder, swirling around them like a tempest, urging them to delve deeper into the mystery that lay before them. The weight of the past pressed heavily upon Bill's shoulders, and he knew that whatever secrets the box held, they were only the beginning of a journey that would intertwine their fates with Eliza's in ways they could hardly begin to comprehend. The night was thick with an unsettling energy as Bill and Gus peered into the weathered box, its contents shimmering softly in the silvery moonlight. The air crackled with anticipation, and Roger, having calmed slightly, settled beside them, his alert ears still flicking toward the shadows of the grove. The dog seemed to know they were standing at the threshold of something extraordinary, something that could alter the course of their lives forever. "Look here," Bill said, his voice barely above a whisper as he lifted a small brass compass from the box. Its needle quivered erratically, as if unsure which direction to take. "This ain't no ordinary compass. It's as if it's trying to lead us somewhere." Gus leaned in closer, squinting at the intricate engravings on the compass's casing. "I'll be darned. It's got those same symbols on it. You reckon it could show us the way to Eliza's treasure?" "Maybe," Bill replied, his brow furrowing as he turned the compass in his hands. "But it might also lead us into danger. We don't know what we're dealing with here." Roger nudged Bill's arm, his instincts flaring again. Bill looked down, meeting the dog's deep brown eyes. "You feeling something, boy?" With a soft bark, Roger turned away from them, his nose to the ground, and began to move toward the grove's entrance as if something unseen beckoned him forward. "Let's follow him," Bill said, tucking the compass safely into his pocket. "He's got a nose for trouble, that one." Gus nodded, the tension still palpable in the air, and they trailed after Roger, who led them through the shadows. Each step felt heavier, the weight of unseen eyes upon them, and the whispering leaves seemed to sway with a life of their own. The closer they got to the edge of the grove, the more the shadows deepened, as if they were crossing an invisible threshold into another realm. Suddenly, Roger halted, his body rigid, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. Bill and Gus exchanged glances, both feeling the prickle of unease race along their spines. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, his voice low. Then, like a clap of thunder, the quiet of the night shattered. A low growl reverberated from the depths of the trees, a sound that set their hearts racing. Roger's hackles rose, and he took a step back, eyes wide and focused on the darkening path ahead. "Seems we ain't alone," Gus muttered, his gaze scanning the surrounding. "What in tarnation is that?" Before Bill could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and gaunt, with a weathered face that appeared to be carved from the very night itself. It wore a long duster that billowed around its legs, and its eyes gleamed like two shards of ice. Bill felt his heart quicken, a primal instinct urging him to flee. "Who dares to disturb the spirits of the grove?" the figure rasped, its voice like dry leaves skittering across the ground. "Speak your purpose, or be swallowed by the darkness." "We didn't mean no harm," Bill stammered, his voice a half-whisper, caught in the web of fear. "We're just searching for something that belongs to a friend of ours, Eliza McGraw." At the mention of the name, the figure's demeanor shifted. The tension in the air lightened just a fraction, but the chill of the grove remained. "Eliza," it murmured, almost reverently. "Her spirit lingers, tied to this place by secrets buried deep. You tread a path fraught with peril, cowboys. Seek not only the treasure, but the truth that binds it." Gus's eyes darted to Bill, a mix of confusion and caution. "What truth? What do you know about Eliza?" The figure stepped closer, revealing more of its features, a face marked by age and wisdom, yet shadowed by an eternal sorrow. "She was a keeper of the grove, a guardian of the lost. The treasures you seek are not mere trinkets. They are pieces of her very soul. Each item tells a story, echoes of a life lived and lost. Then we'll find her story, Bill declared, newfound determination igniting within him. "We'll honor her memory, whatever it takes." "Very well," the figure replied, its voice now softer, almost a whisper. "But remember, the spirits will not part with their secrets easily. You must be prepared to face what lies ahead. The compass will guide you, but only if you are true of heart." With that, the figure began to fade back into the shadows, leaving behind a lingering aura of mystery. Bill's heart raced as he glanced at Gus, who was visibly shaken but equally resolute. "What do you think it meant?" Gus asked, voice trembling. Bill swallowed hard, his mind racing with possibilities. "I reckon it means we're in for a wild ride, partner. But if Eliza's spirit is tied to this treasure, then we owe it to her to see this through. We'll need to study those trinkets more closely. There's got to be a clue hidden among them." With Roger leading the way, they returned to the grove, the night still cloaked in shadows and secrets. As they approached the box, Bill felt an undeniable connection to the past, a magnetic pull urging him to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within. The air was thick with the promise of adventure, and though uncertainty lingered like a storm on the horizon, the weight of Eliza's story began to unfurl before them, beckoning them deeper into the heart of the unknown. "Let's see what we can find," Bill said, resolve firming in his chest. "This ain't just about treasure anymore. It's about setting things right." Udidus. With that, they set to work, the night around them alive with the whispers of long-forgotten tales, ready to be woven into the fabric of their own lives. The moon hung high in the ink-black sky, casting a silver sheen over the grove, illuminating the box that had been their reluctant treasure for the past few days. Bill crouched beside it, his fingers tracing the outlines of the trinket still nestled within. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, a stark contrast to the strange, otherworldly chill that lingered since the figure had vanished into the shadows. "Look here," Bill murmured, lifting a delicate locket that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. It felt cool to the touch, and he could almost sense the stories trapped within it. "This must have belonged to Eliza. I reckon it's a key to the past if we can just figure out how it fits." Gus, still visibly shaken from their encounter with the spectral figure, leaned in closer, eyes wide with curiosity. "You think there might be a picture inside? Maybe it'll show us what she looked like." With a gentle click, Bill pried open the locket. Inside, the small, faded photograph revealed a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, a striking resemblance to the old dog they had found in the cabin. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. The dog must have been more than just a stray. "This here's Eliza," he whispered, his heart racing at the connection. "And if this is her, then that dog—" He paused, glancing toward Roger, who had settled nearby, ears perked and alert, as if he could sense the weight of their discovery. Gus leaned closer, squinting at the image. "Well, I'll be. That dog's been with her all this time, hasn't it? You reckon it knows something?" "Could be," Bill said, his thoughts racing. "Animals have a way of knowing more than we give them credit for. I reckon we ought to get back to the cabin and see if that old hound can lead us to more clues." Roger stood, tail high and posture tense, as if the very mention of the cabin sparked a fire in his spirit. He sniffed the air, then turned toward the path they had come, urging them forward with a soft whine. With newfound purpose, Bill and Gus gathered their wits and followed Roger's lead, the grove behind them now a backdrop of dark secrets. The journey back felt heavier than before, the shadows seeming to stretch and clutch at them, as if reluctant to let them go. They walked in silence, each footfall echoing against the stillness, a reminder of the mysteries lingering just out of reach. As they neared the cabin, the moonlight glinted off its weathered wooden frame, illuminating the space around it in a ghostly glow. Bill pushed the door open with a creak that reverberated through the stillness, revealing the familiar sight of dust motes dancing in the air. Roger bounded inside, his excitement palpable as he sniffed around, searching for something only he could sense. "Easy there, boy," Gus chuckled, though there was an edge of nervousness to his laughter. "Don't go busting down the walls." But Roger had stopped suddenly, standing rigid in front of the hearth. His ears twitched, and he let out a low growl that rumbled deep in his throat. Bill exchanged a concerned glance with Gus, both men sensing the shift in the air. "What is it, Roger?" Bill asked, moving closer. The dog's gaze was fixed on a small, half-buried object wedged beneath a loose stone in the hearth. "Well, I'll be a rattlesnake's uncle," Bill exclaimed, kneeling down to inspect it. With careful hands, he dislodged the stone, revealing an old tarnished key, its surface etched with intricate designs that looked almost otherworldly. "What do you reckon that goes to?" Gus asked, peering over Bill's shoulder. Bill turned the key over in his hand, a sense of excitement bubbling within him. Could be a lock to a chest, or maybe a door to something hidden away. If Eliza was a guardian, she might have kept something important locked up tight. Roger seemed to sense the significance of the discovery, his tail wagging, as if he understood the weight of the moment. "We gotta find what this key unlocks," Bill declared, determination coursing through him. "It's time we got to the bottom of this." Just as he stood to regroup with Gus, a low howl echoed from outside, a sound that seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of the night. The hair on the back of Bill's neck prickled. "That don't sound like no ordinary coyote." Gus nodded, eyes wide. "More like a call to arms, if you ask me. We best be on our guard." Bill glanced toward the door, heart pounding. "Whatever's out there, we ain't turning back now. We've come too far." With Roger at his side, eyes scanning the darkened corners of the cabin, Bill felt an unyielding sense of resolve settle within him. They were standing at the threshold of a mystery that had waited far too long to be unraveled. Whether it was treasure or truth that awaited them, he couldn't say. But one thing was certain: the spirit of Eliza McGraw would not rest until her story was told, and he would be the one to share it. With the key clutched tightly in his hand, Bill led the way back into the night, ready to face whatever the shadows had in store, his heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. The journey had just begun, and the road ahead shimmered with the promise of adventure, danger, and perhaps a chance to heal the past. The night stretched before them like a canvas of ink, the stars scattered across the heavens like silver dust. Bill stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around him, brushing against his skin as he scanned the horizon. The howl had faded into the distance, but the chill it left behind lingered, a reminder that not all creatures of the night were friendly. Roger stood by his side, nose twitching as he filtered through the scents of the wilderness, ever vigilant. "Stick close, partner," Bill murmured to the dog, who seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. Together, they ventured toward the low stone wall that bordered the cabin, its surface rough and weathered, a testimony to years of wind and rain. The moonlight washed over it, revealing traces of something, perhaps a marking, a sign, or just the random scratches of time. Bill bent down, brushing away dirt and debris with his fingers, revealing a series of symbols etched deep into the stones. "What in tarnation?" he muttered, squinting to make sense of the markings. They were not like anything he had seen before, strange swirls and curves that danced across the surface like the windswept dunes of the desert. They spoke of ancient tales, perhaps of lost tribes or forgotten legends. "What do you reckon, Gus?" he called over his shoulder, hoping his friend would join him. Gus ambled over, his brow furrowed in thought as he knelt beside Bill. "Looks like some kind of old script or symbols. Could be tied to Eliza's family or something she found out here. Might be worth a look back in town, see if anyone's familiar with it." "Good thinking," Bill agreed, but his gaze lingered on the stones. "But I reckon we best find that keyhole first." He stood, brushing the dirt from his knees, and turned back toward the cabin. The shadows seemed to dance around him, whispering secrets that made the hair on his arms stand on end. As they moved to the front of the cabin, Roger suddenly perked up, ears pricked and nose twitching wildly. He darted toward the side of the building, stopping abruptly to sniff at an old wooden crate, its surface crumbling under the weight of neglect. "What's got you all riled up, boy?" Bill asked, stepping closer. Roger whined softly and pawed at the crate, a determined glint in his eyes. Bill knelt beside him, lifting the lid with some effort. Dust exploded into the air, swirling around them like tiny spirits released from their prison. Inside, an assortment of items lay half-buried in the debris. Worn leather pouches, rusted tools, and something wrapped in a faded cloth. Bill carefully reached in and pulled out the cloth, unraveling it to reveal a small, intricately carved box. The wood was dark, the carvings depicting swirling winds and what appeared to be the same symbols from the stone wall. "Now ain't that something?" Gus said, leaning closer, eyes widening with curiosity. "What do you think it holds?" Bill held the box up to the moonlight, tracing the patterns with his fingers. "Whatever it is, it's tied to Eliza's story for sure. We need to see if this box has a lock that matches our key." He fumbled with the clasp, and to his surprise, it opened with a gentle click. Bill's heart raced as he lifted the lid. Inside, a folded piece of parchment lay nestled among a few dusty trinkets. An old compass, perhaps, and a silver locket that gleamed faintly. "Let's see what you've got for us," he whispered, pulling the parchment free. It was brittle and yellowed with age, but as he unfolded it, his eyes darted across the scrawled handwriting. "Listen here," he said, reading aloud. "To whoever finds this, know that I, Eliza McGraw, have hidden my treasures in a place where shadows never tread." Gus leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "What does she mean by that?" "Don't rightly know, but she mentioned something about a guardian of the secrets, a creature that watches over the land." Bill's pulse quickened. "There's more here. About the key," he continued, tracing the words with his finger. "If ye hold this key, ye hold the map to the heart of the desert." "Heart of the desert," Gus repeated, brows knitted. "Ain't nothing but sand and rocks out there. What could she be hiding?" "Could be something worth a fortune or a curse," Bill replied, his mind racing. The thrill of adventure wrapped around him like a lasso, tightening with each passing moment. "But I'll be damned if we don't find out." Roger barked suddenly, breaking the tension, his body tense and alert. The howl echoed again in the distance, closer this time, as if the darkness itself were calling out. "Time to move," Bill said, tucking the parchment back into the box and securing it carefully. "We need to get to the bottom of this before whatever's out there decides to pay us a visit." Gus nodded, eyes darting nervously toward the woods. "Let's head back to town, get the lay of the land, and maybe find someone who knows about those symbols." With a final glance at the cabin, Bill felt the weight of the past pressing down on him like the heat of the midday sun. They had awakened something here, something that had long lain dormant, and now it stirred restlessly in the night. Together, with Roger leading the way, they set off into the shadows, the mystery of Eliza McGraw's legacy breathing life into their journey, a tale of the unknown unfurling before them, like a dusty road stretching toward the horizon. The thrill of the hunt coursed through their veins, blending with the whispers of the wind as they ventured deeper into the night, ready to uncover the truths hidden beneath the surface of time. The moon hung high above the desert, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the ground as Bill, Gus, and Roger made their way back toward town. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat of the day. Each step they took stirred up clouds of dust that danced in the silvery light, reminding Bill of the secrets buried beneath the earth, waiting patiently for the right hands to uncover them. "Gus," Bill began, his mind still swirling with thoughts of Eliza's letter, "what do you reckon that guardian creature could be? Sounds like something out of a dime novel." Gus scratched his chin, pondering the question. "Might be a coyote or a mountain lion, but the way you're talking, I reckon it could be something a whole lot stranger. You don't find too many legends that don't have a grain of truth behind them." Roger, ever vigilant, paused periodically to sniff the air, his ears swiveling toward the dark woods that bordered the trail. The howl had faded into silence, but a tension hung in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to burst. Bill glanced down at the dog, admiration swelling in his chest. Roger had a nose for trouble, and he could sense something that lay beyond mere shadows. "Let's keep our wits about us," Bill warned, lowering his voice as they approached the edge of town. "If this place has seen its share of ghosts and legends, we best tread lightly." As they entered the small settlement, the flickering lanterns illuminated the dirt streets, casting a warm glow that felt comforting against the encroaching night. The saloon stood at the corner, its wooden sign creaking softly in the breeze. A few locals milled about, their laughter mixing with the clatter of poker chips and the strumming of a guitar. Bill felt the familiar pull of camaraderie, but tonight his mind was elsewhere. "Let's start at the livery," Bill suggested, pointing to the stable where Old Man Franks tended to the horses. "He's been around long enough to know the history of this here land." The two men made their way over, Roger trotting ahead, tail wagging like a flag of eager anticipation. As they pushed through the heavy wooden doors of the livery, the scent of hay and leather enveloped them. Bill spotted Franks in the back, his grey beard dusted with straw, kneeling beside a horse that shifted nervously. "Evening, Bill." "Gus," Franks greeted, looking up with keen blue eyes. "What brings you boys here at this hour?" "Got ourselves a bit of a mystery," Bill replied, pulling out the small box and placing it on the workbench, the moonlight glinting off its surface. "Found this at a cabin not too far from here. Belonged to a woman named Eliza McGraw." Frank's brow furrowed, and he stood slowly, wiping his hands on his apron. "Eliza? Now that's a name I ain't heard in years. Folks used to say she had a gift, a way with the land and the creatures that roamed it." Gus leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. "What kind of gift?" "Some said she could talk to him," Franks replied, his voice low and gravelly. "Others claimed she had a way of seeing things before they happened, but it was more than just stories, I reckon. Folks around here believed in her and feared her a little too." Bill exchanged a glance with Gus. "She wrote something about a guardian of secrets. You ever hear of that?" Frank scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Might be referring to the spirit of the desert itself. Legends say there's a creature out there that protects hidden treasures, but it ain't something you'd want to cross paths with. Folks who go looking for trouble usually find it." Bill felt a chill run down his spine, the kind that told him they were onto something real and dangerous. "Do you know anything about the symbols on this box?" Franks leaned over, studying the carvings closely. "These here are ancient, tied to the old ways. They say the desert holds secrets to those willing to listen. Might be a map to something worth more than gold, or a warning to stay clear." Gus stepped back, glancing around the livery as if the shadows held eyes. "And what if Eliza's treasures are protected by this guardian?" "Then you best be prepared," Frank said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Legends say it takes the form of a great beast. Some say a coyote, others a mountain lion, but those who've seen it say its eyes glow like lanterns in the dark." Roger whined softly, as if sensing the weight of Frank's words, and Bill knelt to scratch the dog's ears. "Well, if we're gonna do this, we best gather what we can. We need supplies, maps, food, and maybe some protection. Whatever's out there, I ain't about to go into the desert unprepared." The old man nodded, his expression grave. "Ain't no better time than now to dig up some old stories. I'll bet the folks at the general store might know something more. They've been around long enough to hear the whispers of the wind." Bill straightened, determination flickering in his chest like a campfire. "Then let's not waste another minute. Gus, you keep an eye on Roger while I see what I can find." As they prepared to leave, Roger let out a low growl, his body tense and alert, eyes fixed on the door. Bill's heart raced. The night felt different, charged with an energy that thrummed beneath the surface. "Easy, boy," Bill said softly, hand resting on Roger's back. "Ain't nothing but the wind. We'll be out of here soon enough." But as they stepped back into the cool night air, the shadows seemed to shift and swirl, whispering secrets too old for men to understand. With the weight of Eliza's mystery pressing on their minds and the promise of adventure lighting their way, they ventured into the unknown, the desert stretching before them like an uncharted map waiting to be explored. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the dusty trail as Bill and Gus set out towards the general store. The night air was crisp, filled with the scent of sagebrush and the distant echo of a coyote's call, a reminder of the wildness that lurked just beyond the edge of civilization. Roger trotted alongside Bill, his ears perked and eyes scanning the horizon, a vigilant guardian ready to protect his master from unseen threats. Why in tarnation would anyone want to live out there alone? Gus pondered aloud, adjusting his hat as a breeze rustled the dry grass at the side of the trail. A woman like Eliza, she must have had a reason, right? Could be she was running from something, or maybe she found something that called to her, Bill replied, his mind racing with possibilities. But it don't add up. If she had a gift, why'd she end up alone in that cabin, surrounded by nothing but shadows? Could be them shadows were her friends. Gus chuckled nervously, but his grin faded when he caught the serious look on Bill's face. You reckon there's still something out there? Some kind of treasure or danger waiting for us? Could be both, Bill admitted, glancing down at Roger, who had stopped to sniff at the ground, his nose working like a bloodhound. And I'd trust that old dog's instincts over any old tales. He knows when something ain't right. Roger lifted his head, his gaze piercing through the darkness, as if he sensed something lurking beyond the reach of the moonlight. Bill could feel the tension in the air, a prickling sensation that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. Let's pick up the pace, he urged, and the three of them moved forward with a newfound urgency. As they reached the general store, the wooden door creaked open, revealing a warm glow from inside. The store was a treasure trove of goods, shelves lined with everything from canned beans to ammunition. Old Mr. Jenkins, the storekeeper, was sorting through a stack of dusty boxes, his spectacles perched precariously on his nose. "Evening, fellas," Jenkins greeted, looking up with a smile that quickly faded when he saw the seriousness etched on their faces. "What's got you all worked up?" "We're looking for information about Eliza McGraw," Bill said, stepping forward, "and anything strange that's been happening around these parts. We found a box of hers with some odd symbols, and we're hoping you can help us out." Jenkins' face paled slightly as he leaned against the counter. "Eliza, you say? That woman was a legend round here. Folks didn't talk much about her after she disappeared, but I reckon the stories never really left." "Tell us what you know," Gus urged, his curiosity piqued as he leaned in closer. Jenkins scratched his chin thoughtfully, his eyes drifting towards a dusty shelf in the corner. "Well, there's always been whispers about the Guardian. They say it watches over her secrets, and it don't take kindly to trespassers. A few years back, some ranchers went out looking for her treasure. They never came back, just up and vanished, like smoke in the wind." Bill exchanged a glance with Gus, a sense of foreboding settling in the pit of his stomach. "What about that box? What do the symbols mean?" Jenkins' brows knitted together as he picked up a small lantern, casting flickering light over the surface of the counter. "I've seen symbols like that before. Some are tied to the old ways, ancient markings from the tribes that roamed these lands long before any of us was born. They believed the desert was alive, that it held spirits both good and evil." "Good and evil?" Gus echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sure as shootin'," Jenkins replied, lowering his voice. "The desert gives life, but it can also take it away in a heartbeat. If Eliza had a gift, it may not have been a blessing. She might have been a keeper of secrets, but those secrets can be a heavy burden." Roger, still alert, let out a low growl, his body tense as if he sensed the weight of Jenkins' words. "What do you reckon we ought to do?" Bill asked, his heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. "Gather supplies and head back to that cabin," Jenkins said, his voice steadying. "But be wary, boys. The desert has a way of playing tricks on folks. If Eliza's treasure is guarded by something fierce, you'll want to be prepared for anything." With a nod, Bill and Gus began to gather supplies, canned goods, a couple of canteens, and a sturdy rope, all while Roger remained close, his instincts never wavering. As they stepped back into the cool night air, the stars twinkled above like watchful eyes, and the wind whispered secrets that danced just out of reach. "Let's make haste," Bill said, feeling the thrill of adventure coursing through him. "We got a mystery to unravel, and I reckon it's high time we find out what Eliza's been keeping hidden all this while." With Roger leading the way, the three of them ventured back towards the dark silhouette of the cabin, the desert stretching before them like an ancient guardian, its secrets waiting to be uncovered under the watchful gaze of the stars. The pulse of the night quickened, and Bill felt an electric charge in the air, a promise of what was yet to come. They were not just chasing shadows anymore. They were stepping into a story woven from the very fabric of the land, where every rustle and whisper held a clue, and every heartbeat echoed the call of adventure. The night was thick with the scent of sage and the cool breath of the desert, a stark contrast to the warmth of the general store that Bill, Gus, and Roger had just left behind. The moon hung low, casting a silvery light that danced upon the ground, illuminating the path ahead. As they walked, the sound of their boots crunching on the gravel mingled with the soft rustling of the wind, creating a symphony of nature that felt both eerie and alive. Roger, the old hound, led the way with an alertness that belied his age. His nose twitched at every passing scent, ears perked for any hint of danger. Bill admired the dog's instinct. He had seen Roger chase off coyotes and guide lost travelers to safety. If there was trouble afoot, Roger would be the first to know. "Keep your eyes peeled, boys," Bill cautioned, glancing at Gus. "This ain't just a simple treasure hunt. We're dabbling in things best left alone." Gus nodded, his face pale in the moonlight. "You reckon those ranchers really vanished because of Eliza's treasure?" "Could be," Bill replied, adjusting the rifle slung over his shoulder. "Or it could be a tale spun by folks who got too curious for their own good. Either way, we need to tread carefully." As they approached the cabin, its silhouette loomed against the night sky, dark and foreboding. Bill took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him like a heavy blanket. The stories of the Guardians stirred in his mind, and he found himself questioning if they were foolish for seeking what others had left alone. But curiosity burned in his gut, stronger than fear. "Let's check the place," he said, his voice firm. He reached for the doorknob, but before he could twist it, Roger let out a low growl, his body tense and ready. "What is it, boy?" Bill crouched down beside the dog, studying the ground. There were tracks, fresh ones, leading away from the cabin and into the desert. They were unlike anything he had seen before, long and claw-like, almost as if a creature had skittered across the dirt. His heart raced as he realized that whatever had been here wasn't just a figment of local folklore. "Looks like we ain't the only ones with a mind to poke around this old place," he murmured to Gus, who peered over his shoulder with wide eyes. "You see those tracks?" "Yeah, they ain't rabbit or coyote," Gus replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you reckon made 'em?" "Could be something we don't want to tangle with," Bill said, pushing the door open with caution. It creaked loudly, as if protesting their intrusion. The interior was dim, illuminated only by the moonlight filtering through the grimy windows, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. Inside, the cabin was a mix of dust and memories, a place frozen in time. Old furniture lay scattered about, and remnants of Eliza's life lingered in the air, an old quilt draped over a chair, a tattered book with pages yellowed and edges frayed. Bill stepped further inside, the floorboards groaning under his weight. "Look here," he called to Gus, who had been examining a dusty shelf lined with jars. "This might be what we're looking for." He held up a small leather-bound journal, its cover cracked but still intact. Opening it carefully, Bill began to read. Eliza's handwriting was elegant, flowing across the pages like a river. The entries spoke of the desert's beauty, her deep connection to the land, and the strange happenings that had plagued her nights. Whispers in the wind, shadows flitting just beyond her line of sight, and visions of a creature that protected her secrets. "The Guardian is restless," Bill read aloud, his voice dropping to a hush. "It warns me of trespassers. I must keep the treasure hidden, for it is not just gold, but a power that can be misused." Gus's eyes widened. "You think that creature is what made those tracks outside?" "Could be," Bill replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "If Eliza was right, then we're walking into something much bigger than we bargained for." Roger, still alert, sniffed the air and moved toward the corner of the room, where a pile of old burlap sacks lay. He pawed at one, his growl intensifying. Bill knelt beside him, and as he pulled back the sack, a glimmer of metal caught the light. He reached in and pulled out a small, ornate box, its surface etched with the same symbols he had seen on the box they had found earlier. "Gus, take a look at this," Bill said, handing it over. As Gus examined the box, Bill felt a strange chill wash over him. The air in the cabin grew heavier, the shadows seemed to stretch, and for a brief moment he thought he heard a faint whisper, like a voice carried on the wind. "Bill," Gus said, his voice trembling. "Do you feel that?" Before Bill could respond, a loud thud echoed from outside, followed by a low, guttural growl that sent a shiver down his spine. Roger barked furiously, the fur along his back standing on end. Bill's heart raced as he exchanged a glance with Gus, both men knowing instinctively that whatever had prowled the night was now aware of their presence. "Get ready," Bill said, gripping his rifle tightly. "Whatever's out there, it knows we're here." With Roger at their side, they braced themselves for whatever came next, the tension in the air thick as molasses, and the cabin, once a mere shelter, now felt like a cage, trapping them between the secrets of the past and the horrors of the present. The whispers of the desert grew louder, and the Guardian's watchful eyes seemed to bore into their souls, waiting for them to make their next move. The thud outside reverberated through the cabin walls, rattling the loose boards and sending a fresh wave of unease through Bill. He could feel his heart pounding in rhythm with the low growl that echoed from the shadows beyond the window. The moonlight cast an otherworldly glow, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, but it also highlighted the creeping fear that clung to the corners of the room. "Keep your eyes peeled, Gus," Bill instructed, his voice low and steady. "Whatever that is, it ain't just looking for a friendly chat." Gus nodded, his youthful bravado slipping as he gripped his own rifle with white-knuckled intensity. "What do you reckon it could be? Some kind of wildcat?" "Could be, but it don't sound like any critter I've heard before," Bill replied, his instincts honed from years of tracking game and danger alike. He moved toward the window, careful to avoid the creaky floorboard that he knew would give him away. He peered outside, squinting through the dim light, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever had made that noise. Roger, ever vigilant, sniffed the air again, his ears perked up and alert. He moved closer to the door, his stance rigid, as if he were a coiled spring ready to snap. Bill felt a swell of gratitude for the old dog. Roger had been more than a pet. He was a companion forged in the fires of shared adventures and narrow escapes. "What's it smelling, boy?" Bill whispered, kneeling beside the dog, who turned his head slightly, eyes still fixed on the door. "You got a sense of what's out there?" Just then, another sound pierced the night. A series of rapid, skittering noises, like something darting through the underbrush. Bill's heart raced as he looked back at Gus. "We best move fast. Whatever that is, it could come right through that door." With a nod, Gus stepped beside Bill, their breaths held in anticipation. Bill's fingers brushed the cool metal of the ornate box in his pocket, a nagging instinct telling him that whatever lay outside was somehow connected to Eliza's journal and the power she had written about. There was more to this treasure than mere gold. It was a force tied to the land itself, and perhaps to the creature that guarded it. "Let's check the back," Bill said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We can't let it flank us." They edged toward the back door, with Roger leading the way. The dog paused at the threshold, his ears perked as he listened intently. Bill could feel the tension in the air, thick as a summer storm, and he wondered what secrets the night held. As they stepped outside, the cool breeze swept over them, stirring the dust and carrying with it the scent of sagebrush. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that flickered like ghosts across the ground. Bill scanned the horizon, heart thumping like a drum, ready for anything that might emerge from the darkness. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of movement. A figure, slender and low to the ground, slinked between the cacti. It had the outline of a dog, but something about it was off. Its movements were too fluid, almost unnatural. "Did you see that?" Bill asked Gus, who nodded, eyes wide with fear. "What in tarnation is that?" Gus breathed, barely able to contain his astonishment. "I don't rightly know," Bill replied, gripping his rifle tighter. "But we best find out before it finds us." They crept forward, each step measured, with Roger leading the way. The creature stopped, its head raised, catching the moonlight just enough for Bill to see its features. A sleek, almost ethereal coat shimmered like starlight, and its eyes glowed with an unsettling intelligence. It was neither dog nor wolf, but something otherworldly that set Bill's instincts on high alert. "Stay close, Gus," Bill whispered, his voice low and steady. "If it's the guardian Eliza wrote about, we don't want to provoke it." As they drew nearer, the creature regarded them with an intensity that made the hair on Bill's neck stand on end. Roger, usually so fearless, whined softly, inching closer to Bill's side. "What do you want?" Bill called out, though he knew the words felt hollow against the vastness of the desert night. The creature tilted its head, seeming to weigh their presence against the night. Then, with a sudden flick of its tail, it turned and dashed deeper into the underbrush, leaving behind only the whisper of the wind and the rustle of leaves. "What now?" Gus asked, his voice shaky. "Should we follow it?" Bill hesitated, glancing back toward the cabin. "Maybe we ought to take a moment to think this through. There's something deeper at work here, and I reckon we ain't the first to stumble upon it." Suddenly, Roger darted forward, following the creature's path. "Roger!" Bill called, panic rising in his throat. "Come back!" But the dog was already gone, swallowed by the shadows. Bill and Gus exchanged a worried glance before Bill took off after him, the journal's words echoing in his mind. The guardian was restless, and they had unwittingly stirred it awake. As they raced into the dark, the whispers of the desert seemed to rise around them, a chorus of secrets waiting to be uncovered, and a new mystery beckoning them deeper into the heart of the night. The guardian was watching, and Bill could feel its presence, both a warning and a promise, as they ventured further into the unknown. Bill pushed through the thick brush, heart pounding as he called for Roger. The moonlight flickered through the trees, illuminating the winding path before him. The thought of losing the old dog in the dark sent shivers down his spine. "Hang tight, Roger! I'm coming!" he shouted, his voice swallowed by the whispering wind. Gus followed close behind, panting with exertion. "You think that creature's trying to lead us somewhere?" he asked, eyes darting to the shadows. "Could be," Bill replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "But I reckon it's more like a distraction. Whatever's going on here, it feels like we're being played." As they pushed further into the underbrush, the sound of Roger's excited barking rang out, vibrant against the night. Bill's heart leaped. "That's him!" he shouted, quickening his pace. The barking led them to a clearing where the moonlight bathed everything in silver. In the center stood Roger, poised and alert, but beside him was not the ethereal creature they had followed. Instead, it was a scruffy little mutt with a patchy coat and a look of mischief in its eyes. Bill blinked in surprise as he realized the creature they had been chasing was a simple stray playing tricks in the night. Gus caught up, his breath coming in short gasps. "What in tarnation is going on here?" he asked, glancing at the small dog, which seemed to be enjoying the attention. Bill knelt beside Roger, who wagged his tail furiously. "I reckon this little rascal has been leading us on a wild goose chase," Bill said, a grin creeping across his face. "I'll bet he's the one who's been stirring up the dust round here." As if on cue, the little mutt scampered off again, its tail high and proud, beckoning them to follow. Bill exchanged a knowing look with Gus, and they took off after the mutt, who led them to a narrow trail that snaked between the rocks. "What's this?" Gus asked, squinting into the gloom. "You think there's something more to this mess?" "Only one way to find out," Bill replied, stepping onto the path. The old dog, Roger, trotted beside him, his demeanor now calm and collected, as if he understood the secret. They followed the trail until it opened into a small canyon, the walls steep and rugged. At the far end, something glimmered under the moonlight. It was a small creek, lined with smooth stones, but it was not the water that caught Bill's eye. Rather, it was the remnants of an old campfire and a stack of supplies half hidden beneath a pile of brush. "Gus, take a look at that," Bill said, motioning toward the supplies. "Looks like someone's been living out here." As they approached, they discovered the remnants of what appeared to be stolen goods, provisions, a few trinkets, and a tattered blanket. Bill's gut twisted. "I reckon this is the work of some low-down scoundrels looking to make a quick buck." Gus nodded, scanning the area. "If we find out who they are, we could put a stop to this nonsense." Just then, the little mutt yapped excitedly, darting toward the creek. Bill and Gus followed, and to their astonishment, the mutt nosed through the brush, unearthing a small leather pouch. With a gentle tug, the pouch came free, spilling its contents onto the ground. Gold coins and gemstones glimmered in the moonlight. "Gold!" Gus exclaimed, crouching down to inspect the treasure. "This must be the loot they've been hiding." Bill looked down at the little mutt, his heart swelling with gratitude. "You've done a fine job, partner. Now we just need to figure out who's behind this mess." Just then, a rustle came from behind the rocks. Bill raised his rifle instinctively. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady. A figure emerged from the shadows, eyes wide with surprise. It was a man, disheveled and ragged, his hands raised in surrender. "I ain't looking for trouble, I swear," he said, his voice shaky. "Just trying to get by." Bill lowered his rifle slightly, studying the man. "What's your name, fella?" "Jake," he stammered, glancing nervously at the gold. "I didn't mean no harm. I just needed food and—" "Stealing ain't the way to go about it, Jake," Bill interrupted. "You put folks in danger with your tricks. I reckon we ought to make this right." With Roger standing protectively beside him, Bill offered a solution. "You can return what you've taken, and we'll talk about helping you out. But this has to end, and you need to face the music." Jake nodded, shame flooding his features. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt nobody. I thought I could just live out here." Gus stepped forward, his expression softening. "We'll make sure you get a fair chance, but you gotta own up to what you've done. You can't run from it forever." After a long moment, Jake agreed, and they all made their way back to the cabin. With the old dog leading the way, the atmosphere shifted. The weight of the night's revelations began to lift, replaced by the promise of new beginnings. As dawn broke over the horizon, the first rays of sunlight painted the desert in hues of gold and amber. Bill looked at Roger, who sat proudly beside him. "We did good, boy. We brought some justice to this place." And with a newfound sense of purpose, Bill felt the warmth of the sun on his back, knowing that the cabin, once a site of mystery and fear, would now serve as a refuge, a home where stories of the past could be transformed into tales of hope. The desert stretched before them, vast and full of promise, and Bill knew he had found his place in it, alongside his faithful friend Roger.